Okay, this is a test run video tutorial for um, starting up Logic, starting up a new project, but more specifically for the string loops assignment. So if you're trying to find out more about loops in general, this is going to help you out. So let's walk through a couple of those key steps as we're first getting used to firing up Logic. On any Mac computer, whenever you hover over your toolbar and you click Logic, a lot of times don't forget it's not going to pop anything up, but it will activate the program. Up here, you have your menu. And from there, you can go to File, New from Template, Open Recent. Those are going to be the most common options. So I'm going to go to New because I'm going to start a brand new project today. As a reminder, you have options here before you select what track type and how to begin. So for sake of ease, I'm just going to stick to audio because I know I'm going to begin with loops. I'm not quite ready for a software instrument. I'm not going to be playing with the keyboard quite yet. I just want to play with audio. So I'm going to go to create audio track. In class, we're going to talk about some of the features of Logic Pro and the way that you can navigate. So assuming that we've done that already, this is just to focus on loops. So first things first, where to find loops. Loops, again, are audio loops that Logic Pro comes with. They're a part of your sound pack. They're a part of the program. They're one of the things that I love about this program. So loops, the menu is going to be in your top right. And it looks like a loop, like if you look closely, like a roller coaster looping. So your loop browser is found right there. You can hover over it. And generally in this program, anytime you want to figure out what a keyboard shortcut is, if you hover over that, it'll generally show you what it's going to be. So loop browser is common. So because it's common, it's quite easy. It's literally just O on your keyboard. So if I type O, then it's going to pop open my loop browser. Everything is organized from numbers, and then it goes beyond numbers alphabetically. So if you look here, I'm in the A's, scrolling, and I'm still in the A's, still in the A's. So tons and tons and tons of loops. Because of that, it can be kind of overwhelming and it can be kind of challenging to figure out exactly where to begin or exactly what you want. So for this first project, I'm going to have you begin by building a foundation of strings, the sound of strings. So with that in mind, let me kind of walk you through some of the possibilities for how to find a good string. So first of all, in your loop menu, you notice there are a few things that you can pay attention to. First is your organizing, loop packs, all packs. So I'm going to do that for now. I'm going to leave everything open, going to be looking at everything. From there, you can decide to organize or focus on finding a specific instrument or sound based on the instrument. So if I click on that, it's going to pull up all the different types of instruments within this program, anywhere from drums to jingles, sound effects, vocals, slide guitar, traditional instruments like the piano. But you can also get into things like beats. And like I said, things like impacts, which are going to just be the type of sound, an impact sound, like a booge, which is a term that's being used right now to kind of describe that. So if I'm looking for strings, of course, if I look here really closely, I'm going to see an entire category devoted to strings. So I can click on that, and it's going to filter all of my results to only show the string loops. Still a bunch though. So from there, I can decide, okay, I have all the strings, I'm filtering those. I can then go to genre. Once I click on genre, then I can decide what type of song do I want to create. Am I looking for something jazzy? Am I looking for hip hop? Am I looking for world, Chinese traditional, which is actually getting really popular in a lot of different ventures today whenever combined. So choose whatever kind of fits you. That is, I'm not telling you which ones you have to do, but let's say I'm feeling generally, if I don't know what to do, I like to go toward, honestly, I like funk. Here's the thing, when I click on funk, there's only one result that pops up. It's called a disco break-in strings. So I filtered two categories and there's only one result. If I want to see what that sounds like, it's really simple. I just hover over it and I click. Here's what it sounds like. All right, now that's gonna loop until you click on it again. If I wanted to stop playing, I just click on the same loop and it's gonna stop that. That's not exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna come back up to my filter, click funk, and it's gonna remove that filtering. Maybe I should go to a different one. I'm gonna go to, let's go to hip hop. And then there's a subcategory hip hop slash R&B. So keep that in mind. With hip hop, there's quite a few more strings. So let's have a look at, let's kind of go down here. I want to look at keep shining strings. So one of the other things I want you to notice is that these loops are all named. They all have some kind of unique name given to them, and some loops are put into a specific folder, if you will. So keep shining string chords, you have 12 variations of that loop, that audio loop. So this one is string chords number one. If I look, everything is going to be at the same tempo and everything's in the same key. And I don't want you worrying too much about that right now, but generally you're going to want your loops to fall in the same key at least. If they're not the same tempo, the program actually transposes that tempo, but don't worry about that. So one of the things that might be wise about choosing something like this, Keep Shining, or where you have multiple loops, quite simply, let's say I really like chords 2. I click, I decide I want to use that. I click, I hold down my click and I drag over audio 1. It's then going to drag that loop into the program. And whenever I use the space bar, it's going to just go ahead and play it. Then, quite simply, I can click on chords 4 and that's going to totally change it. So if I click on Keep Shining String Chords 4 and I hover and I move it all the way to the end of that previous loop in a new track, it's going to do two things. It's going to create a new audio track for me, and it's very likely going to blend well together. So let's see how the end of that sounds at the beginning of the next loop. So it's pretty cool. It changes the feel. If that's kind of what you're going for, then there you go. You already have two parts to your song. Part 1 with string chords 2 and part 2 with string chords number 4. So excellent. That's one way you can do that. The other thing I wanted to show you really quickly before moving on, beyond the instrument genre capabilities, you can also go to descriptors, and that's just going to give you an overall feel. So maybe you're not feeling a genre or even an instrument. So I'm going to turn strings off too. I can choose a sound based on the description of that sound. So if I want something that's generally intense, if I want something that's intense and melodic and grooving, then clicking all of those are going to filter what the program identifies as intense, grooving, and melodic. So that might also be a route for you to go if you're not necessarily wanting to choose an instrument or a genre to find what you're looking for. Last thing, whenever navigating the loop menu, you have something that's actually pretty key that might help you to, again, narrow your results, and that is going to be loop types. And by that, it means what file type is the loop that you're looking at. So it defaults to selecting all types, but if you look underneath there, you have audio loops, software instrument loops, pattern loops, and then drummer loops. And I want to briefly show you what each of those are. So first things first, audio loops, those are great. That's what I just showed you was an audio loop. The thing about audio loops is that you can't manipulate them quite as much as you might be able to manipulate the other loop types. So again, nothing wrong with audio loops, but it kind of is what it is. You can double click and adjust the file a little bit. You can do small things like reversing, normalizing, and changing. But if you're really not preferring anything, I might invite you to look at the other options. So option 2, software instrument loops. This one is going to give you a little bit more, a little more options for editing and manipulating. Part of the reason why software instrument loops are great is because they are instruments built in the program, and a lot of the times that's going to be something that provides a MIDI map. So we'll get into MIDI later in the semester, but these down here where I'm hovering and looking at is a notation, a digital notation of all of the instruments being played. So let me show you what that looks like as I click my play button. So why choose this option? This might be good if I found a loop that I really like, but I might want to slightly change it. Maybe I want to take out a note entirely. So I actually can go to my MIDI map again by double clicking, pulls up your MIDI map, click a note, I can just hit delete and it gets rid of that note entirely. And then when I click play, it's going to be my customized MIDI map. So here's what it sounds like. So slightly changes it, slightly customized, adds a little more character, and it gives you a really good starting place. The reason why it's different than audio is the audio loops are what they are. You can't change the notes within the file. Whenever you go to a software instrument, however, again, software instrument loops here, a lot of the time you can directly customize the individual MIDI map that exists within that pre-made loop. So it's pretty cool. So you might play with that. The other thing you can look at, depending on the loop, you might sometimes also have a step sequencer. And for those of you who are familiar with music and notation, a lot of times it'll actually even provide a score. So if you can read music or you're interested in possibly replicating this pattern in a different instrument or a performance of your own, you are often provided a score that'll give you that notation. Great. Okay. Third category is pattern loops. This is similar to the software instrument, but let's see. I'm going to go to strings, tapping strings. Here's what this does. The difference between software instrument and pattern loops is that this is going to use a step sequencer versus a MIDI map, which is good. And for a lot of us, that is maybe familiar if you've ever used GarageBand. But a step sequencer kind of looks like this. So this one's pretty complex in terms of what's happening with the step sequencer, but basically all of these notes are turned on or off by clicking them. And as the loop progresses, it's going to activate that note within your step sequence. And so if I just kind of go through and randomly, like totally randomly click a bunch of these and turn them off, here's how it is going to sound different than it did before. So kind of cool, customizable, might be something fresh if you're looking to do something a little bit differently. So consider that. And then the last one, we may not get into this today. There are drummer loops. A drummer loop is going to load in a AI drummer, which is kind of cool. Again, GarageBand has this if you know anything about it. They're all given names. So, let's do Isabella and let's do Como Air because we're in Como. Why not? So click, same as before, click, drag into my empty space over here, just for sake of making room. I'm going to get rid of these menus. So this AI drummer, when I double click the track, it's going to pull up this menu down here. Let me show you what that sounds like when I hit play. Cool. So this is more of a percussion loop instead of a drum set loop. But what's cool about this is I can move this cursor, this fader, in all different categories according to my chart: loud, soft, and then complex and simple. So if you want something really loud and complex and busy, you can put it in the top right. It sounds like this. If I want something complex but softer, I would just drag that down. That's just a volume thing. And then if I want something more simple, I drag it left. So you can really customize that. You can also change your settings over here. And then last but not least, in your AI drummer, you have different instruments and types that you can drag over here. So again, that's a percussion AI drummer. If I want to go to a more like drum set type thing, let's go to this one. I'm going to click, drag, And while I'm doing this, I haven't mentioned, but I'm muting my previous tracks just to turn them off for now. This is what Aiden sounds like. Cool. So I could actually increase the amount of fills he's playing. I can bring in other, excuse me, I can increase the fills he's playing. I could bring in more hi-hat or hi-hat types, kick snare, whatever that may be. So play with that. And then as you're building loops, you might add an AI drummer. There is, of course, going to be loop options in your regular audio loops, software instrument loops, or pattern loops. So you do not have to use the AI drummer. I myself don't always do that. I kind of like sticking to either audio or software instrument loops. But by all means, choose what works for you. So that is our loop menu that's using loops. Hopefully that's enough to get us caught up if we were not in class. And let me know if you have any questions. Good luck. Have fun. That's what it's all about. Have some fun.